If you're from the Philippines, chances are you have seen RC Cola's latest ad. Now before you storm the comments with hate, let me tell you that we are not here to analyze the meaning behind the ad. Instead, we'll be discussing the horror and comedy elements that made it. The basic story structure is divided into three parts known as acts. You have the beginning, the threat, and the climax. What happens in between each act, or what bridges them, is what makes each story unique and interesting. Now, in order to prepare the audience and readers for dramatic events within each act, writers and directors make use of what's called the hook and the build-up. In more technical terms, this is called the inciting incident and the rising tension. The hook, as the word implies, hooks the audience by getting their attention. It's that particular moment in the story that gets their curiosity firing. You need to get your audience invested by giving them hints that something is up. Then build the momentum by adding in more information, which in turn would justify the events to come. In technical terms, these informations are called expositions. A very good example of the hook and build-up is in the Pale Man scene in the 2006 fantasy film Pan's Labyrinth. The scene opens to an image of an outlandish humanoid monster. This image of the monster is the hook. It gives the hint that the 10-year-old Ophelia is about to face her most dangerous challenge yet. Then, one of the instructions says, "Do not eat or drink anything during your stay." Thus begins the build-up. When she opens the portal to the Pale Man's realm, we see the walls look like bloody flesh and the posts look like bones. The long shot make it look like Ophelia is inside the ribcage of a monster. Then she steps in and sees the monster from the book, the titular Pale Man. It sits dormant, seemingly asleep in front of a table full of food. Ophelia looks up and sees portraits of the still dormant monster torturing and devouring children. She then looks down and sees stacks of children's shoes, presumably the Pale Man's victims. At this point, we already know three things. The Pale Man is asleep, it is dangerous, and the food on the table is off limits. But then Ophelia disobeys orders and eats some of the food on the table. Thus, the Pale Man springs to life and gives chase. Another great example is in the playground scene of the Alfred Hitchcock thriller Birds. It is about the rural town of Bodega Bay being terrorized by a flock of rabid birds. In this scene, Melanie sits on the bench outside the school, while the children's singing can be heard on the background. Then from the long shot, we see a single bird perching on the bars right behind her. This is the hook. The scene then cuts alternately between the uneasy Melanie and the bars, where one additional bird perches every time the shot is shown, the build-up. All throughout, the children's creepy singing intensifies, adding more and more lines to the chorus. Melanie remains oblivious to the danger lurking behind her. The tension builds further when the scene stops alternating and remains with her for a while, until finally she notices one of the birds. Her glance follows it slowly, and slowly, and then boom! Suddenly, the school is no longer a safe place. Every element seen and heard in the hook and build-up contributes to the insidious feeling which preps the audience for the big reveal. In the case of the RC commercial, the hook is the boy entering the house in such a gloomy mood. Right then and there, the audience get the feeling that something is amiss. Everything from the lighting, the colors, and the child's mood tells you something is wrong. And that is without dialogue. It immediately builds when he reveals the reason for his frown, the gossip that he is adopted, which the mother denies. What started off as a typical family drama took a turn for the bizarre when the boy reveals the glass cups on his back. It gets a lot freakier when the mother reveals her equally freakish true form. We're reactions to the ad were mixed, as people couldn't decide whether it was funny, creepy, or both. This is because the ad effectively employed various tropes to shock the audience. A trope, or tropes, are genre-specific recurring elements which directors and writers use to tell the story. These can be as common as the evil stepmother, the chosen one, the secret heir, the mistress, and the missing diary. Looking at you, Pinoy teleseries. And then, there are the more complex ones, like the waiting evil, the world that never progresses, and the here comes the cavalry. The RC Cola ad used tropes of black comedy and body horror to shock the audience, a high-risk, high-reward combination. A black comedy is when a rather serious story is twisted to be told in a funny nature. More often than not, they are satirical. It uses themes such as death, murder, domestic abuse, mental issues, obsession, and others. Scenes tackling serious matters are staged with such a feel-good aura or vice versa. Take for example, the climactic party scene in Parasite. All the colors give it the atmosphere of a feel-good drama, but the scene is actually violent.
Notice how the film doesn't let up on the humor. It injects a morbid joke in this otherwise violent death scene.
Or when the narrator beat himself up in Fight Club. Notice how dankly colored the scene is, which is in direct contrast to the cartoonish self-beating. Just like when the boy in the RC commercial took off his shirt to reveal the cups on his back, and when the mother revealed her true form. The twist ending, the shock value, the dialogue, the acting, and the exploitation of tropes created synergy and gave the ad its intended peculiarly funny finish. Parasite is about class struggle, while Fight Club is about mental health. Earlier, I said that this video is not meant to analyze the meaning behind the RC ad, but it goes without saying that the theme for said ad is domestic issues. As Filipinos, domestic issue is the trope that we are most familiar with. The theme behind the RC ad banked on that by making us feel it's another short story with a heartwarming end. But they stunned everyone by taking that trope and turning it on its head. The other trope that we see here are those of body horror. As the name implies, it is a subgenre of horror that uses graphic images of mutilation, mutated or deformation of the human body, and sometimes even animals. There is a special type of stomach-churning dread that comes with watching unnatural things happening to the human body. It is the thought of seeing a headless corpse or mutilation caused by an accident. Body horror explores these dreadful thoughts to terrify the audience. One extreme example is from the original The Fly movie, where the fly in the spider's web is revealed to have the head and arms of a human. Or in the 1986 remake, where Seth slowly turns into the human-fly hybrid. Remember earlier when we talked about build-up? A well-established and well-placed reveal of ghastly things happening to the human body is an effective and blood-curdling experience. And this is what the team behind the RC ad pulled off so masterfully. To gain better understanding, I suggest watching the films mentioned earlier. You won't regret them, trust me. So, what other tropes were you able to spot in the RC commercial? Let us know in the comments below. And as usual, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Till next time.